Hello Ellsworth children, is Mrs Thomas coming back to read another story to you. I'm doing this one from my garden, so there might be a little bit of wind. You can see that the bunting's moving a little bit in the wind, and sometimes you might hear a bird or two. Hopefully my cats will keep quiet, but I thought it'd be nice to read it in my garden because this is an animal story, so I do get quite a bit of wildlife running through now and again, and I thought it would match the story that I'm going to read to you. So the story today is called Mr Dog and the Rabbit Habit. And I'm going to send to you, before you listen to this story, a map. There's a map with this. And you might want to follow the map while you're listening to the story. So that's the map of where the story happens. So I hope you enjoy this story. I know the last one, some parents said that it reminded them of stories that they'd had when they were little, and somebody said it reminded them of the play we did last year in school. I'd forgotten about that, so it was really good that people enjoyed it, and I love the artwork that was sent in that you drew while you were listening. So here goes. Chapter 1. Mr Dog and Mother Rabbit. The rabbit was running as fast as she could. The dog was gaining on her. Her fluffy white tail bobbed about as she darted left and right, trying to give him the slip. But the dog was too fast. The rabbit rolled over on her back as a long, furry snout loomed above her. There's the dog looming over the rabbit. "Tag! You're it!" The dog nudged the bunny's belly with his nose and snorted. "Now it's your turn to catch me, if you can." "Wait!" snuffled the rabbit. "I'm all puffed out." "Very well, I shall wait." The dog sat down for 3 seconds, then jumped straight up again, panting. "There, ready to play now?" The rabbit thumped a hind leg in excitement. Most dogs she'd met were scary and chased you because they wanted to get you. This dog was different. He was a scruffy, scraggy mutt, his coat black except for his white nose and front paws. In place of a collar, he had a red and white hanky tied round his neck. His long tail swished all about, busy as a broom, and his shaggy eyebrows were full of expression. "What's your name?" asked the curious rabbit. "Mr Dog," the dog replied. "What's yours?" "Mother Rabbit." She paused, whiskers twitching. "If you don't mind me saying so, Mr Dog is a funny name." No. Figgy Jig is a funny name." Mr Dog danced a small jig on his hind legs. "Bafflehonk, Wiggy and Dumpy Draws are all funny names, but Mr Dog is elegant." He bowed his head. "Rather like myself." "Did your owners name you Mr Dog?" "Owners?" Mr Dog's eyes widened. "I don't have owners. I've a few pet humans, if that's what you mean, but I prefer the travelling life. Right now, I'm staying in a garden." He licked his nose. "Perfectly nice woman who lives in the house, but she will insist on throwing away perfectly good balls, however many times I take them back." "Well, I've never gone further than this field," Mother Rabbit admitted. "I was born here, and so were my own bunnies. They're sleeping in their nest right now." She got up and stretched. "I have to wait until dusk before I go back to feed them. I'd hate to lead something hungry and horrible there." "Quite right," Mr Dog snuffled at her. "So, another game of tag then?" "No, thank you," Mother Rabbit wrinkled her nose. "I need my strength to mind my little ones. I'm hungry, and my nose smells fresh carrots." "Carrots?" Mr Dog looked around. There was only grass in the big field for as far as he could see. Grass that was surrounded by 2 big green hedges and 1 solid wooden fence. Beyond the fence, Mr Dog could see the tops of some tents and caravans. "There aren't any carrots growing round here, Mother Rabbit, but maybe there are humans eating carrots behind that fence." "The new big fence, you mean? Goodness knows what happens behind there." Mother Rabbit's ears waggled and she shook her head. "Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr Dog, my nose is extra clever when it comes to carrots. I can smell them. This way." and off she hopped towards the nearest hedgerow. Mr. Dog watched her go. "Ah, well," he said, "there are loads of rabbits here. Maybe one or two of them would like to play." But the next moment his ragged ears pricked straight up at a squeak of dismay from the hedgerow. It was Mother Rabbit, he realised, and ran off to investigate. Soon he saw what Mother Rabbit had not. There was a trap hidden in the long grass. As she'd run inside it to get the carrot, she must have knocked a stick holding the trap door up. Now it had snapped down and she was caught inside. "Help!" Mother Rabbit was hopping about anxiously. "I can't get out. What is this thing?" "I'm afraid it's a rabbit trap." Mr. Dog pushed his muzzle up against the catch on the door, but it was on a steel spring and wouldn't open. He batted at it with both paws, but soon his tail drooped. "It's no good. I can't get you out." "Oh no!" Mother Rabbit looked at Mr. Dog with wide eyes. "So many bunnies have gone missing from these fields ever since the big new fence went up. I thought they just hopped away. They must have been caught, just like me." There she is caught. But why? Mr. Dog felt sad. What harm can rabbits be doing running around and burrowing in a field? "I just don't know." Mother Rabbit shook her head. "Oh, Mr. Dog, what about my poor little bunnies asleep in our burrow? They're only 2 weeks old. What will become of them if I never come back?" Mr. Dog knew the answer, and it wasn't good. "You will come back. There must be a way to open this rotten thing." He closed his jaws around the wire of the trapdoor and rattled it. "Come on, come on!" "Hey, Dog, get away from that rabbit!" Busily trying to force open the cage, Mr. Dog hadn't noticed a young man with dark hair and muddy clothes close by. "Where did you come from?" he woofed in surprise. Can you hear the woofing in the background in my house? Perhaps that's adding to the story. Perhaps he's enjoying the story. Of course, the man didn't understand him. He just picked up the trap with Mother Rabbit in it and turned away. "Dear me, what shocking manners you have! Woof, woof!" Mr. Dog grabbed the leg of the man's jeans in his jaws and tugged very hard. But what tasty trousers!" I think he's getting a bit distracted, isn't he? "Hey, get off! Oh!" The man tried to pull away, but overbalanced and fell to his knees. He put down the trap. "Silly dog." "Close, but my first name is Mr. Thank you very much." Mr. Dog scrabbled again at the door to the trap, trying desperately to pull it open. "Mr. Dog," Mother Rabbit spoke quickly, "you can't help me, but please help my little ones. If you find another Mother Rabbit with a litter like me, perhaps she'll take them in. Follow the big new fence towards the road," she went on. "You'll find my burrow there." "I promise I'll help." Mr. Dog looked into her dark and frightened eyes. "I'll get you out. You'll see." By now, the man had got back to his feet and was glaring down at Mr. Dog. He reached for the spotted hanky around Mr. Dog's neck. "Ah, no collar on you, just a neckerchief, which means that you probably don't have an owner. And if you don't have an owner, then it's the dog pound for you." The man's fingers seized hold of the fabric. Now Mr. Dog was trapped too. Chapter 2. White Rabbit. "Unhand me, sir! Woof, woof!" Mr. Dog barked. Desperately, he turned in a tight circle to break the man's grip on his neckerchief and then sprang backwards. The man reached out to try to catch him, but Mr. Dog ran away as fast as a racehorse, if not slightly faster. "I'll be back," Mr. Dog panted. "Keep your furry chin up, Mother Rabbit." He looked over his shoulder and was pleased to see that the man wasn't following him. Even so, Mr. Dog kept running. "I can't take any chances," he thought. "If anything happens to me now, I'll never reach those poor bunnies." Suddenly, something in the ground sprayed jets of cold water all around, splashing him all over. "Yeah!" Mr. Dog was soaked in a second and quickly changed direction, running for shelter in the nearest long grass. Whatever was that? As he looked back, Mr. Dog saw that the powerful spray had sent some rabbits running away too. He realised he'd seen something like it before in a garden he'd stayed in. Must be a sprinkler that goes off to scare any animal that comes near. He licked his nose, still panting for breath. But who would leave such a thing out here? Peering through the tall grass, Mr. Dog saw a long hosepipe snaking from the water sprinkler. It stretched all the way to the big new fence. Across the field, the man from before was walking towards the fence with the trap containing Mrs. Rabbit, Mother Rabbit, in his arms. There you go. A door swung open in the fence and both man and trap went through it. Most mysterious, mused Mr. Dog. Whoever's behind the big new fence, it seems they really don't like rabbits. But why? He got to his feet. Well, I'll just have to find out. I wonder if there's a sneaky hound-shaped back way in. But as Mr. Dog trotted across the field towards the fence, being careful to avoid the water sprinkler, he spotted something that surprised him. And Mr. Dog was surprisingly hard to surprise. Sitting by the corner of the fence in the field was a rabbit who looked very different from all the other rabbits he'd ever met in the wild. It was bigger, white and fluffy, with enormous lop ears. That's an Angora rabbit, a pet rabbit. Confused, Mr. Dog scratched the side of his head with his back leg. Whatever was a pet rabbit doing out here? Perhaps, he thought, it belongs to someone who lives behind the big new fence. He jumped up in sudden excitement. If the rabbits found a way out, perhaps I can use it as a way in and reach Mother Rabbit. Mr. Dog stood up on his back legs and waved his paws. Hey, you! White and fluffy! Over here! At the sight of Mr. Dog, the big white rabbit turned and bolted away. Wait! Woof! Mr. Dog barked. I only want to talk to you. He ran after the big rabbit, but by the time he'd reached the corner of the fence, it had vanished from sight. Mr. Dog knew that there was a rabbit warren full of tunnels in the long grass. Perhaps one of the holes led under the fence to whatever was on the other side. Or perhaps it might go to Mother Rabbit's little bunnies. Mr. Dog remembered that she didn't want to lead predators to her tiny ones, and so he wouldn't return until dusk. I shall stand a stick in front of every rabbit hole, Mr. Dog decided. Then I'll come back at sunset. If the sticks be knocked aside, I'll know a mummy bunny has called by. If the stick is still standing there, it means no one's been in or out. That hole might lead to Miss Mother Rabbit's home and have hungry little ones inside. Mr. Dog fetched several sticks and placed one outside every rabbit hole he could see. Then he left the field and went back to his adopted garden. When he returned at sundown with a belly full of food, a fitting reward, he felt, for all the balls he'd had to chase and fetch, Mr. Dog surveyed the burrows in the gathering dark. All of the sticks he'd placed at the entrance to the rabbit holes had been pushed aside, except one. Mr. Dog felt a pang of sadness at the thought of what he had to tell the little bunnies within. He crossed over to that particular hole in the grass and pushed his head inside. "Hello," he called. "Anyone home?" His ears were folded down over his head, but still Mr. Dog could hear little whimpers and shivering bodies. He blinked, his keen eyes growing accustomed to the dark. "I'm terribly sorry, but your mother has had to, go away for a bit. I'm here to help you find a new place to stay." "Mamma's gone," came a quiet, high-pitched voice. "Mamma's left us," came another. "She didn't want to go." Mr. Dog's heart felt as heavy as an elephant. "Don't worry, I'm going to do my very best to get you all back together again." A third voice came out of the darkness. "But why would a dog help a rabbit?" It sounded deeper than the first two. "Dogs hunt rabbits. Dogs eat rabbits." "Well, Mr. Dog doesn't," growled Mr. Dog indignantly. "Mr. Dog? Why should we trust you?" "Because D-O-G is the first part of do good, and that's this Mutt's motto. he grinned. "I'm going to pull my head out of your home now and wait for you all to come and join me." Mr. Dog carefully wriggled free and checked to make sure that there weren't any dangers about. There were lots of other rabbits in the field, some watching him warily, so he gave them his cheeriest smile. He wondered if any would be willing to make space for a couple more bunnies in their burrows. He waited for several minutes and eventually a very small rabbit, barely bigger than a tennis ball, crawled cautiously from the burrow. She was brown with tiny ears and big black eyes. Behind her came another small brown bunny, a boy, smaller than his sister and sleepier too. A second girl soon followed, the smallest of all. The siblings sat side by side, looking up at Mr. Dog. "Are you sure you won't eat us?" whimpered the tiny girl bunny. "Certain," said Mr. Dog. The bunny's big sister turned back to the burrow. "It's all right," she squeaked. "We haven't been eaten. You can come out too." Another rabbit emerged from behind the brother and sister, only this one was easily twice their size, with white fur, floppy ears and a pink twitching nose. Mr. Dog's eyes grew wider. "That Angora rabbit I saw. It's you!" Chapter 3. The Story of Socks. "Angora? What are you talking about?" The white rabbit shook his head. "I'm just a regular wild rabbit like my brothers and my sisters here." "I'm not sure the Angora rabbit's completely the same." Mr. Dog's shaggy eyebrows shot up into the air. "Your brother and sister," he spluttered. "You can't fool me." "It's true, mister." The little girl bunny wiggled her tail. "He's been in our burrow for as long as I can remember." "And how long is that?" "Since yesterday," squeaked the little boy bunny. "Day before yesterday," said the elder girl bunny proudly. The white rabbit whimpered. "See? Proof positive that we all have the same mum. Now, where is she? We little babies can't look after ourselves, you know." "Babies?" Mr. Dog boggled. This rabbit was big, at least 2 years old. What was he up to? "Do you think we might have a talk in private, Mr. Socks?" squeaked the Angora. "My name is Socks." "All right then, Mr. Dog. A private word, but just quickly." He turned to the baby bunnies. "Hop back inside your burrow. I'll join you in a minute." "OK, Socks." The bunnies hopped inside. Mr. Dog lay beside the Angora rabbit so that they were eye to eye. "So, tell me, Socks," he said, "why are you pretending to belong with these wild rabbits?" "But I do belong to them," Socks began. "I know I look larger than them, but I'm just big-boned." "Come off it, Socks." Mr. Dog shook his head sternly. "Admit it, you're not a wild rabbit. You're a pet." No, I... His whiskers drooped and he sighed. "All right, it's true I am." He looked up sadly at Mr. Dog. "What gave me away?" Mr. Dog cocked his head to one side, considering. Not much, apart from just about everything. What are you up to? I thought perhaps you came from the other side of the big new fence." "Oh, no," Socks said quickly. "I come from a hutch inside a house with a nice garden. I'm not sure where it is, but my owners brought me out here a few days ago and turned me loose." "What?" Mr. Dog's ears stood up straight. "How could they do such a thing? A pet can't survive in the wild." "I'm sure they didn't mean to leave me." Socks washed his whiskers. "I think they were probably just letting me have a bit of a run around, but then they just got back in their car and, well, I suppose they forgot that they hadn't picked me up. They drove away without me." He smiled bravely. "They'll be back, though. I watched the road each day waiting for their car. It was red, I think, or green." Mr. Dog looked sadly at the deflated rabbit. He knew that unwanted pet rabbits were sometimes released into the wild. The human owners thought they were doing a nice thing, but they weren't. "Now I see why you're here," said Mr. Dog. "Pet rabbits need looking after, so you're trying to fit in with Mother Rabbit's little ones." "I thought that she might look after me along with her real bunnies," Socks admitted. "She lost 3 of her little ones when a fox raided the warren. I thought having me to look after would make her feel better." But now you say she's gone. Taken away in a cage by a muddy man, Mr. Dog agreed. Socks, you have to understand. Even if she did look after you, young bunnies in the wild only stay with their mothers for a few weeks. You'd end up on your own again soon. Yeah, but by then my owners would have come back for me, Socks said, although he did look a little uncertain. They wouldn't leave me out here forever, would they? Mr. Dog didn't reply. He had the saddest feeling that Socks's owners were never coming back. Suddenly, a scent was carried to him on the air, and his ears pricked up. Rabbits were scattering all about, and in the distance he could see a torch bobbing. Then, through the twilight gloom, he saw the sleek frame of another dog running towards the warren. As it got closer, Mr. Dog could see it was a lurcher. It's a hunting dog, after rabbits. Mr. Dog batted Socks towards the burrow with his scruffy tail. Quick, get out of sight. Baby bunnies have no scent, but you do. Eek! Quick as a flash, Socks shot back inside the rabbit hole. I hate the wild. I'm never coming out again. Mr. Dog was already down on his haunches, moving in a commando crawl towards the cover of some bushes, so he could keep an eye on what was going on while staying out of sight. The lurcher was running at an incredible speed. It had been trained to catch rabbits, and that's what it was about to do. With horror, Mr. Dog saw that the hunting hound was headed for a bunch of bunnies who were oblivious to the danger. What could he do? Desperately, making all the noise he could muster, Mr. Dog burst from the bushes and ran for the rabbits himself, woofing at the top of his lungs. The rabbits jumped in the air and fled. The lurcher arrived on the scene a moment later, panting for breath. You fool, he snarled at Mr. Dog. You scared them all away before I could even catch one. Mr. Dog assumed an innocent air. My dear fellow, I'm so very sorry. I was trying to hunt those rabbits myself, but I'm afraid I'm not very good at it. Not like you. You seem to be a real expert. Well, yes, I am, since you happen to mention it. The lurcher looked at him suspiciously. Why are you here? Where are your owners? Oh, somewhere about, Mr. Dog said vaguely. He set me loose to catch a rabbit, but, well, I'm no lurcher, am I? I nearly got one, but it ended up getting caught in a trap. Then a man took it away through the big new fence. There's all the action going on. Yes, I'm sure, said the lurcher. They've got dozens of rabbits caged up in there. Why do you think that is? Mr. Dog asked him. What are they up to? Digging, my owner says. The lurcher looked back as his owner called to him. She'll be cross with me now. All the rabbits have scattered and I haven't caught a single one. I can't say sorry enough, said Mr. Dog, hiding his smile, but I'm sure you'll be back. Not for much longer, the lurcher said. The people digging behind the fence are trying to control the rabbits with traps and scarers and clever hunting dogs like me, but it's not working. My owner says they're going to deal with them permanently. Permanently? Echoed Mr. Dog. You mean forever? For good? No turning back? Why, whatever could they be planning? But the lurcher had sprinted away at its owner's call, leaving Mr. Dog alone and feeling very, very worried. Chapter 4, Digging Deep. It proved to be a busy evening for Mr. Dog. The lurcher and his owner ended up hanging around for hours trying to catch rabbits or simply chasing them into nets. Mr. Dog had to sneak about, pulling the nets off or scaring the bunnies away without being spotted. At last, the lurcher and his owner gave up and went away, though the same door in the big new fence remained closed. Exhausted, Mr. Dog went back to the burrow. Socks nervously pushed his head out. What happened back there? The people behind that fence have really got it in for rabbits, Mr. Dog explained. And he explained what he'd done and all he'd seen. So the rabbits are going to be dealt with permanently? Socks twitched his little pink nose in alarm. That's awful. What if my owners haven't come back to me by then? And what about all the rabbits in these fields? Mr. Dog lay down again, shaking his head. Somehow I've got to find Mother Rabbit, put her back with her bunnies and help all the other rabbits too. Including me, Socks said hopefully. Mr. Dog looked at him and smiled. Yes, I'd like to help you too, Socks. Brilliant! Socks hopped up and down. But why would you help us? You're a free dog. You could go anywhere you like. And leave animals in danger without at least trying to help them, Mr. Dog tutted. That's just no me. Oh no, that wouldn't do at all. What if I were the one in danger? I'd like to think other animals would help me if I were in trouble. He looked pointedly at Socks. Animals like you. You'll help me, won't you? Socks looked nervous. What are you going to do? Isn't it obvious, Mr. Dog grinned. The answers and the rabbits lie behind the big new fence. Somehow, we have got to get inside. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'm leaving it on a cliffhanger for you for next time, so you can start thinking to yourself what might happen next. You could even write what you think might happen next. That could be one of your activities this week. Write for me what you think will happen in the story next. And you could write just the next part of it, getting in behind the big fence, or you could write to the very end of the story. So I would love to get some of those stories from you and see if any of them compare to what's actually going to happen in the story. So I hope you enjoyed that one, and either I now want you to have a brilliant rest of the day, or if it's halfway through and you've just had your lunch and you're sitting down and you've decided to have a little story after lunchtime, that the rest of the afternoon goes well. And if you're having this just before you go to bed, then have an excellent sleep so you're all ready in for action tomorrow morning. So I'll say goodbye for now, and I'll be doing another story for you very soon. Bye.